Most hits end with a whistle. This one ended with a stretcher, a broken neck, and a criminal investigation. March 8th, 2011. Zdeno Chara hit Max Pacioretty into a metal post. The NHL watched the footage and did absolutely nothing. So the police stepped in. The sponsors threatened to walk. The Prime Minister spoke up. And the league still didn't move. To understand what happened that night in Montreal, you need to understand the two men at the center of it. Zdeno Chara, 6'9", 250 pounds. A defenseman from Trenčín, Slovakia, drafted 56th overall by the New York Islanders in 1996. Nobody expected much from him, but Chara grew into something the league had never seen before. The tallest player to ever lace up skates in the NHL. A man whose reach, physicality, and discipline turned him into one of the most dominant defenders of his generation. By 2011, he was 33 years old, 13 seasons deep, captain of the Boston Bruins, a Norris Trophy winner, and he had never once been fined or suspended. That's the man on one side of this story. On the other side, Max Pacioretty, 22 years old, born in New Canaan, Connecticut. A first-round pick by the Montreal Canadiens in 2007, 22nd overall. But he wasn't an overnight arrival. Pacioretty spent time bouncing between the AHL and the NHL, trying to prove he belonged full-time. The Canadiens recalled him from the Hamilton Bulldogs on December 12, 2010, just 3 months before everything changed. In 37 games that season, he had 14 goals and 10 assists. Fast, physical, and exactly the kind of young forward a franchise builds its future around. Now, here's the part that matters. These two men didn't just play for rival teams. They played for the Bruins and the Canadiens. That rivalry goes back to December 8, 1924. Nearly a century of hostility. These two franchises have faced each other more than 900 times in the regular season and met in 34 playoff series. More than any other pair of teams in NHL history. This is institutional hatred passed down through generations of players, coaches, and fans. And between Chara and Pacioretty specifically, there was something personal. On January 8, 2011, 2 months before the hit, the Canadiens hosted the Bruins. Pacioretty scored the overtime winner, and as he skated past Chara, he gave him a shove. Not a big one, but enough. Chara lost it. A scrum broke out. The moment passed, but the memory didn't. And on March 8, 2011, the two of them were back on the same sheet of ice. Bell Center, Montreal. The Bruins are down 4-0, and the second period is almost over. Boston is frustrated. That's the emotional temperature on the ice. With 15.8 seconds left in the period, the puck comes loose near the boards. Pacioretty gets to it first. He chips it past Chara and accelerates up the left wing. Chara can't keep up, but he doesn't need to. He knows exactly where they are on the ice. He angles Pacioretty toward the boards and delivers a shove from the side. Now, here's the detail that changes everything. Between the two team benches at the Bell Center, there's a stanchion holding the glass partition in place. It sits right at the seam where the benches end and the boards begin. Every player who has ever played a game in that building knows exactly where that post is. Pacioretty's head and neck connect directly with that stanchion. The impact bows the padding around the post. He drops face down on the ice and does not move. His line mate, Scott Gomez, was on the ice. He later said, "What I remember about it was the sound. It sounded like a gun. Bang." The Bell Center goes quiet. 21,000 people are watching in the arena. Pacioretty lies motionless for several minutes while medical staff immobilize him. They strap him to a spinal board, fit a neck brace, and stretcher him off the ice. An ambulance takes him to the hospital. The diagnosis comes the next day. A fractured C4 cervical vertebra, a severe concussion, a broken neck. His season is over. Whether his career is over? Nobody knows yet. On the ice that night, Chara received a 5-minute major penalty for interference and a game misconduct. but everyone expected that it was just the beginning. A hit like that, with an outcome like that, in a building full of cameras, the only question was how many games. Then came the first wrinkle. The NHL's head of discipline at the time was Colin Campbell, but Campbell had a problem. His son Gregory Campbell played for the Boston Bruins. Same team, same organization. So Campbell had to step aside. The ruling landed on the desk of Mike Murphy, the league's senior VP of hockey operations. Murphy held a telephone hearing with Chara. One phone call. No suspension, no fine, no supplemental discipline of any kind. His official statement read, "This was a hockey play that resulted in an injury because of the player colliding with the stanchion and then the ice surface." He added that Chara had no history of supplemental discipline incidents in his 13-year career, and that the play happened quickly with both players skating in the same direction. That was the league's position. This is just what happens sometimes. But here's what Murphy's ruling didn't address. That stanchion wasn't a surprise. The NHL Players Association had flagged concerns about glass partitions and stanchion safety at arenas across the league. Players knew those posts were dangerous. The league had never mandated changes. The hazard sat there, season after season, waiting for exactly this outcome. From his hospital bed, Pacioretty spoke to TSN. He didn't hold back. He said he was upset and disgusted that the league didn't think enough of the hit to act on it. What bothered him most wasn't his own situation. It was the message it sent. If players see a hit like that carries no consequence, he said, then other players are going to get hurt the same way. He also said he believed Chara was trying to guide his head into the turnbuckle. "We all know where the turnbuckle is," he said.
That's not my style to get, hurt somebody. I always, play hard, play physical, but I never try to hurt anybody, so I'm hoping he's okay.
The league had spoken, and someone outside the NHL decided that wasn't good enough. 2 days after the hit, a man named Louis Dion sat in his office in Quebec and watched the footage. Dion was Quebec's director of criminal and penal prosecutions. After watching what happened to Pacioretty, he made a decision that almost never happens in professional sports. He formally requested a criminal investigation. The Montreal Police Service opened a probe. Not a review, not an internal hearing. A criminal investigation. In the entire history of professional hockey, you can count the number of times that's happened on one hand. The next domino fell fast. Air Canada, the airline that flew charters for all 6 Canadian NHL teams and 5 American ones, sent a letter directly to Commissioner Gary Bettman. Their director of marketing, Denis Vandal, put it bluntly: "Action must be taken by the NHL before we are encountered with a fatality." Bettman didn't flinch. He told reporters that Air Canada was a great brand, and so was the NHL. And if Air Canada wanted to walk, teams could simply book their flights with someone else. But the pressure kept building. Prime Minister Stephen Harper made a public statement. He said he was very concerned about the growing number of serious injuries in the league and that it wasn't good for the game. Canadiens owner Jeff Molson published an open letter expressing frustration, disappointment, and shock. The NHLPA announced it would inspect the rink in Montreal and other arenas to make sure proper padding was in place. This was no longer a hockey story. It was a national story. News outlets that had never covered the sport were running the footage. The NHL had lost control of the narrative completely. The criminal investigation ran into the same wall that the league had already built its defense on: intent. Prosecutors had to prove Chara specifically meant to cause harm, not just that the hit was reckless.
I'm trying to make strong hockey play and play hard, and it's very unfortunate, like I said, that the player got hurt.
And underneath that sat a deeper legal barrier: the implied consent doctrine. When a player steps onto the ice in a professional contact sport, the law considers that player to have accepted a certain level of physical risk. Legal experts said at the time that for charges to hold up in court, the conduct would need to go far beyond what's reasonably expected in a hockey game. A stick-swinging attack might clear that bar. A shove along the boards, even one with a devastating outcome, might not. The investigation dragged on for months. Police held off on interviewing Chara because the Bruins were in the middle of a playoff run. That run didn't end quietly. It ended with Chara lifting the Stanley Cup over his head in Vancouver. No charges, no suspension, and a championship ring. On November 17, 2011, 8 months after the hit, Quebec's Director of Criminal Prosecutions officially closed the case. Their statement was simple. They did not believe a court would find Chara guilty. And here's the detail that makes the whole thing land differently. Even Pacioretty didn't want it to go that far. From the hospital, he said, "I have no desire for him to be prosecuted legally. I feel that the incident, as ugly as it was part of a hockey game." The league wouldn't act. The law couldn't act. And the player at the center of it all didn't want the law involved in the first place. After the season ended, the Bell Center quietly redesigned the area between the benches. The glass panes on either side of the stanchion were removed and replaced with curved glass meant to deflect impact instead of absorbing it head-on. Then the NHL mandated the same change at every arena across the league. No press conference, no public apology, just a quiet retrofit that told you everything the league's words hadn't. The hazard was real, and they'd known about it. Pacioretty came back for the 2011-12 season, 6 months after the hit, and had the best season of his career. 33 goals, 32 assists, 65 points. Team scoring leader. The league awarded him the Bill Masterson Trophy for perseverance and dedication to hockey. He went on to play 17 seasons in the NHL, scored 335 career goals, captained the Canadiens, and played for 4 more franchises before retiring in 2025. Years later, on the Raw Knuckles podcast, he reflected on the hit without anger. He called himself young and stupid for racing to win a puck at the end of a period that meant nothing.
It's me being young and stupid, like, oh, let me try and win this race.
And at the end of the 2012 NHL Awards, standing in the same building as Chara, he said if he walked past him, he'd say hello. No awkwardness, all part of the sport. But the biggest consequence wasn't personal. It was structural. On the first day of the 2011 Stanley Cup Final, just 3 months after the hit, Commissioner Bettman announced the creation of the NHL's Department of Player Safety. Brendan Shanahan, a Hall of Fame forward, was named to lead it. For the first time, the league had a formal system for reviewing dangerous plays. Video breakdowns, hearings, and published explanations for every ruling. In Shanahan's first season alone, the department handed out 13 suspensions specifically for illegal contact to the head. The infrastructure that governs player discipline today traces directly back to the outrage this single incident created. This story forces a question that every contact sport will eventually have to sit with. Where does the league's authority end, and where does real accountability begin? Because in 2011, the NHL drew that line in a very specific place, to protect the institution, not the player. A criminal investigation, a sponsor revolt, a prime minister's statement, an owner's open letter, and the league still didn't suspend the player involved. The changes came quietly, months later, long after the cameras moved on. The NHL never once admitted it got the original decision wrong. And then there's Chara. He was never charged, never suspended, never fined a single dollar. But calling him the villain of this story misses the point entirely. Chara played the way the league rewarded players for playing. Physical, aggressive, and never asked to think about what happens when it goes wrong. He said it himself a year later. In a split second, you do something. You don't even have time to think about it. You just react to it. Not one man's decision in a split second, but a league that spent decades building a culture where that split second was inevitable and then walked away from the outcome. One hit, one metal post, one ruling, and it nearly cost a man the ability to walk. What happened on March 8th, 2011 exposed what the league had been burying for years. That when a player needed protection most, the rulebook had nothing to offer. The system failed him, then quietly fixed itself and called it progress. If this story got you, drop a comment. I want to know which part hit hardest. Like the video if you think more people should see it. And subscribe so you don't miss what we cover next. If you want to support the channel directly, super thanks is right below. Everyone goes back into making these stories.